In this day and age, anime is everywhere. In 2018, I became a fan of it, and the first ever anime I ever watched was Attack on Titan, and that anime encouraged me to watch more, such as Tokyo Ghoul and Seven Deadly Sins and a few others. But in the year of the lockdown, there was an anime that risen up from the grave and spread itself all over the world. That anime was none other than Dorohedoro. Believe it or not, this is actually my second favourite show right after Monster Quest. I can't think of a better anime than Dorohedoro. Dorohedoro is a manga series created all the way back in 2000 by Q Hayashida and adapted in an anime 20 years later. When the anime was first released, it was a huge hit and got a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes and an 8.1 out of 10 star rating on IMDb. 3 years later and still no season 2, Dorohedoro still fascinates me in every single way. And there's high hopes that a season 2 will happen according to Google. The thing that really fascinates me the most about this show is the characters. And let's talk about the main character first. Kaiman is the main character of the entire show. He was once a human being but got his head turned into a lizard by a wizard. So he then partnered up with his mate Nikaido in order to look for the wizard who turned his head into a lizard. So according to the story, there's a man inside Kaiman's mouth that when Kaiman puts the sorcerer into his mouth, the guy pops up and says, "You're the one," or "You're not the one." If he says "You're not the one," then he kills them. If he says "You're the one," then Kaiman uses that wizard in order to bring his head back, which I find quite interesting. And if season 2 does happen, I think that will explain, everything. Then we have Kaiman's right-hand man, or woman should I say, Nikaido, which, spoiler alert, she is a sorcerer upon which Kaiman does not even realise. So, I'm not going to tell you what her magic is, so you're going to have to watch the show in order to find out. Shin and Noe work for the bad guy of the show, Mr. N, and they clean up all the dead sorcerers that Kaiman has killed, so now they go off bounty hunting over Kaiman and Nikaido. To be fair, I'm very nostalgic for their designs, especially their masks, and I love the backstory of how the two became together. And they always find themselves in sticky situations with a dose of dark humour and comedy all the way through. And speaking about the comedy in this entire show is perfect.
Don't worry, I'm gonna go kill that piece of shit! Don't laugh at me! I'm dressed like this because of you!
Vegeta and Ebisu are more the comic relief characters. Vegeta works for Mr. N while Ebisu tagged along with them after she got her face ripped off by Kaiman. Before Ebisu, Vegeta had an old mate, who got eaten by, not eaten, but killed by Kaiman. And now Vegeta wants revenge on Kaiman to, that's pretty much it. I don't really want to, tell you too much about this in case I spoil it for you. So you'll have to watch the anime to see what happens. Then we have Mr. N, aka the villain of the show. I can't wait to talk about this guy, as he is my number one favourite character. He has the best backstory and a desirable motive. Like, we learn from his backstory as to what happens to him, and he possesses black magic that can turn anything into mushrooms. So, on the other hand, there are sorcerers that do exist and sorcerers that don't exist in his world, and he looks for the sorcerer that can control time. And when he finds it, he wants to go back to the day that happened to him and fix it. Next up, I would like to talk about the animation. So movies like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which does have a lot of fluid movement throughout, but when it gets to the fight scenes, it starts dipping down in quality, which on paper sounds shit, but when you watch the film, it surprisingly works. Dorohedoro does the same thing, but the opposite way around. It is based off a comic, and it's trying to, and like with every other anime, it has what's it called again? It's frame rate. That's it, frame rate. So Dorohedoro has a lot of frame rate like any other anime because they're trying to mimic the comic and make it feel all stylized and stuff, which is alright. I mean, it frame rates throughout the entire show, not in a bad way, but an okay, typical way like any other anime. And then when it gets to the fight scenes, the CGI gets full-blown fluid, and that's why I adore it so much. Next, we have the soundtrack, and in my opinion, Dorohedoro has the most original, creepy, quirky soundtrack out of any anime that I've listened to. In most animes, they would often have like a certain style for like their soundtracks, but in Dorohedoro's case, there's like a mixture between clown music, jazz music, rock and roll, heavy metal. And it's not like appealing to a certain person. It's like it's trying to appeal to everyone. And that's another good thing that I like about this show. So, yeah, at the end of the day, the soundtrack just gives me nostalgia. Like, the whole soundtrack is amazing. It's nostalgic. And, yes. In my opinion, this entire show rocks. And it is now my second favourite TV show right after Monster Quest. And I do give it a 9.9 out of 10. And it's wacky, it's gruesome, it's original, it's hilarious, it's just fun to watch. So if you haven't seen Dorohedoro already, I do recommend going on Netflix and giving it a watch. That is my review out of the way. I am Star Invader, and I'll see you all in the next video.